I'm Ian Lucas. I'm the Labour Parliamentary candidate for Wrexham. I've been very proud to be the Member of Parliament for Wrexham since 2001, and I'm standing again for re-election because I think Wrexham is a tremendous place, but I think it's been held back by a very, very bad government in the UK Parliament. And what I want is a government that is committed to making the lives for people in Wrexham better. At present, Wrexham people are worse off than they were in 2010. We know that wages have fallen by 7.4% in the last year in Wrexham, and we see the evidence of that on our high streets. And I've heard that as I've gone around the town over the past 2.5 weeks and in the months and years before. So I want that to change, and we need to vote for change, and we need to vote Labour on May the 7th. I think the top local issue is the very low wages and falling incomes of people in Wrexham. We're in a situation where wages fell by 7.4% from the median wage in Wrexham over the last year alone. Now that's the biggest fall in Wales. And in a world where we have a minimum wage, what that means is that we have reduced hours contracts and 0-hour contracts affecting the income of people locally. So that needs to be addressed. And in the Labour Party, we're addressing that firstly through a higher minimum wage. We want also businesses to be paying a living wage wherever possible. And we need to address issues like energy prices, which are affecting people's pockets. We also have a government who, when they said they would not increase the rate of VAT, did increase the rate of VAT. All of these issues are hitting Wrexham people in their pockets and need to be addressed. They're also hitting Wrexham businesses because, as we see from Wrexham Town Centre and from right across the constituency, we see that businesses are struggling. There are more empty shops because people have less money locally. The Conservatives pretend that things are getting better. In Wrexham, things are getting worse. We are now worse off than we were in 2010. The most important way of regenerating our town centre is to put more money into the pockets of people within the town to spend money in local shops. We also, I think, need to rethink the town centre as a whole, and I think the whole of Wrexham should be involved in this. We need a big discussion about the future of Wrexham as a town. We're in a world where we have the internet and where shopping habits are changing. I think we need to look at providing more housing and homes in Wrexham Town Centre, making it more vibrant and more attractive for people to visit and to spend money. I also think that our town centre at the moment doesn't really reflect the variation and the breadth of population that now exists in Wrexham. And I think because the town centre doesn't reflect the town as a whole, less people are coming to it. I think these are very big issues that we do need to address. And I think we need to be much more receptive in government, at local government level, at Welsh government level, and at UK government level, in responding to the concerns of people locally about the decline of town centres. We've had a perennial discussion in Wrexham about car parking, and it's an important issue as far as businesses are concerned, but it's an issue that the local authority have ducked for far too long. And I think at a national level, we also need to confront the issue of business rates. Now, we have a policy about freezing business rates rather than cutting corporation tax for big business, which I think will help smaller businesses in the town. I ran a small business myself once, and I know the importance of business rates. So these are all issues that really need to confront the crisis that we have in our town centre. But again, things have got worse in the last 5 years, and I hear nothing about how that is going to be turned around from political opponents. I think it's really important that we increase democratic participation. And I think one of the things that is especially important is that more young people vote, because the group of the population who don't vote most are young people. And I think they feel disengaged from the political system. Now, I work very hard in terms of trying to engage younger people in the electoral system. I think schools, frankly, do not do a good enough job on politics as a topic. I think we need a more frank discussion about different political views, different views of the world, and the excitement of politics. I think single issue politics is very largely taking the place of many political parties. However, I do have a number of teenage activists who are campaigning with me in this campaign. One who's 14, one who's 15. The Labour Party is committed to introducing votes for 16-year-olds because we think the voice of young people really does matter. And we also need to make it clear to young people that if they speak politically, then they have power politically. It's the case that this government has particularly protected pensioners who vote more regularly than young people, more than it has protected young people. Young people have taken the brunt of this government's policies on issues like tuition fees in England, abolition of the education maintenance allowance. Political power matters and can affect young people's future, and they must take it on board. Wrexham is a very important cultural and political centre. It is the biggest town in North Wales. It has one of the largest industrial estates in the United Kingdom, and it is the home to very many important businesses. Because it's on the border, it is in a unique situation. I say unique because the England-Scottish border is different to the England-Wales border. Much of the traffic in our area is cross-border from east to west. We've seen the crises that have been caused by the roadworks that have been happening at the A55, A4, A3 junction, which is a classic example of an English piece of infrastructure work having profound and indeed bigger effects on Wrexham than it does on Chester. That's why it's absolutely crucial that we have a voice as MPs from North Wales in Westminster at the UK Parliament, a voice that the Conservatives are threatening to take away with the idea of English votes for English laws. Is that an English law, a law that affects that particular roundabout? We also have issues relating to the NHS that are very relevant and important, in that much of our specialist care comes from England for people in Wrexham. We also need to have a strong voice in Cardiff, and we need to make clear that the infrastructure developments that have taken place, for example with the Valleys lines in South Wales, need to be replicated here. We need strong links, rail links into Merseyside, into the northwest, to link up also with Anglesey and further west within Wales. We are at a crossroads. We can be an important crossroads, and we need to push harder to achieve that. I don't disagree with my party's manifesto because I am the Labour Party candidate, and I'm standing on the basis of that manifesto. The Labour Party, like any political party, is a coalition of views, and when you're a member of a political party and you stand for election on that manifesto, it's important that you stick to that manifesto. What's unfortunate is when parties don't do that. And the reason I'm such a strong supporter of the first past the post system is that 5 years ago I stood for election in Wrexham, and I asked the people of Wrexham to support me, which they did. Now, if I'd broken my word on the manifesto, and I come back to them 5 years later, they can not vote for me as an individual, as the person on the ballot paper. Now, unfortunately, the Liberal Democrats, for example, stood on a manifesto commitment to young people that they were going to work to abolish tuition fees. The candidate who stood for the Liberal Democrats 5 years ago in Wrexham has not come back to Wrexham to explain to Wrexham people why he didn't vote in favour of scrapping, why his party let those people down. And that's very, very sad. So the people of Wrexham know that I'm the candidate as an individual. I stand on the manifesto, I'm a member of a team, and if I do anything in breach of that manifesto, then I can be held to account by the people I represent. I think that we need, as a matter of urgency, to address the issue of elderly care right across the UK. And I think the most important principle that we need to apply is to bring together budgets relating to healthcare and social care. And I think that we have proposals for that within our manifesto, but I know from personal experience that this is a huge issue for very many families, something that isn't really being confronted. And I think the idea of separating out entirely free NHS care from means-tested social care when people are coming out of hospital into environments where they have to pay for care is one of the most pressing issues of our time that, frankly, I don't think political parties have addressed sufficiently. So my focus, I think, would be about those most vulnerable people who are really subject to great pressures because of the failure to bring together those health and social care budgets. Well, I made clear when the large prison was originally proposed that I thought that the best solution for North Wales was a smaller prison in a more central location, and that was my consistent position. However, the prison is being built. I've been to the site myself. It's going to be the largest prison in the United Kingdom, and we have to make it work for Wrexham. And as the Member of Parliament, the important thing for the Member of Parliament is to make sure that the town benefits from the construction of the prison. So I've been in touch with local businesses already to try and get them involved in the construction and to have access to contracts as far as building the prison is concerned, and to make sure that both Glyndŵr and Coleg Cambria are involved in training people as the prison is constructed. Secondly, I was determined that this would be a public sector prison. And it's a testament to the pressure that was exerted that it has become a public sector prison, and we need to integrate that into our local economy. We need to be very conscious that this is a UK-wide project and it needs to be funded at a UK level, because the pressures that are going to be imposed, both in terms of transport, in terms of healthcare, in terms of educational provision, are all going to be relating to prisoners from England and from Wales. Less than half of the prisoners who will be in that prison will be from Wales. So it's very important that we press for adequate funding at a UK level for that prison so that Wrexham is not in any way detrimentally affected. NHS care is devolved within the UK governmental framework at the present time. But because I believe in an approach of solidarity within the United Kingdom, I think that the poorer parts of the United Kingdom should be supported by the richer parts. And that's why we in the Labour Party are proposing a mansion tax on properties worth over £2 million a year to provide extra resources for the National Health Service. So we will be providing extra resources through a tax on the most expensive properties within the UK. I think that within Wales, I think there are real concerns about the structure, particularly of the North Wales Trust. And for me personally, my own view is that the North East Wales Trust model that existed a few years ago worked more successfully as far as the Wrexham area was concerned. So I think that we should reconsider the structure of health within the local political setup. We should perhaps also, going back to this idea of integrating care and health provision, look at local authority structures within our area. We've got very, very small local authority structures within Wales at the moment, if you compare the situation in England. And I think we need to think about a more holistic approach to care for particularly our elderly people. That means that we need to reconsider the structures and make sure they work best for the people in this area. I oppose fracking. I made a speech last November in Parliament in which I asked for this issue to be devolved to the Welsh Government. I thought that was the right thing to do at the time because I was very well aware of the strength of feeling that there exists in Wrexham concerning the borough site, and I knew that as an opposition party, the Labour Party within the UK did not have sufficient votes to bring forward a moratorium within the UK Parliament. But I knew that it would be very likely that a Welsh government would vote in favour of a moratorium. So the position is that I've persuaded the Labour Party, it's in our manifesto, to devolve fracking to the UK Parliament, to the Welsh government, and also for a moratorium on fracking within Wales to be in our manifesto. So in our manifesto is both devolution of fracking as an issue to the Welsh government, and secondly that there should be a moratorium on fracking within Wales for the foreseeable future until the real concerns and the genuine concerns about safety are addressed. And in any event, my own view is that I'm very strongly in favour of renewable energy. That's why we've been pushing so hard locally for example, solar power within our local communities, and for the excellent insulation that I see around Wrexham on houses at the moment. And I think that should be our focus rather than non-renewable sources of energy such as fracking. I think that I'm experienced both as a politician and also as a businessman, and as someone who has made quite a long journey in life. I sound very old when I say that. I'm 54 years old, but I was born and brought up in a council house. I was very fortunate in going to university, and I was the first in my family ever to go to university. I then ran my own business for a few years, employed people, knew that I was the last person at the end of the month to be paid, and I then became a business minister, and I've been in Parliament now for 14 years. I'm a very strong advocate for Wrexham. I've lived here for many years and married and brought up my family in the area, and I think this is a tremendous place to live. It has great potential. It is achieving great things at the moment. There's tremendous businesses in Wrexham, but we need to be much more self-confident, I feel. As someone who originally in the mid-80s came away from Wrexham, it is a tremendous place and has an enormous amount to offer. And sometimes I think we talk ourselves down too much. So we need to be strong advocates to bring people to Wrexham, to tell people what a great place this is to be, to live and to do business, and to create great opportunities for our young people, and try to encourage young people to actually stay in Wrexham and develop their lives and their careers here rather than going away. I think too many talented people leave Wrexham at the present time. We need to keep them here. I think it's unfortunate that we don't have more than one female candidate. I think that we in the Labour Party have a very good record as far as diversity is concerned, not just in terms of gender diversity, but also in terms of ethnic diversity too. And of course, Wrexham is changing an enormous amount at the present time. That isn't reflected in the list of candidates at the present time. I think that we need to work harder, and this applies to the local authority and to the Welsh government as well as the UK government, to bring more diversity into our governmental structures. You know, our local council, it suffers from a lack of diversity too. And I think we need to do better on all of that. It's quite difficult when you're a candidate and, a white middle class candidate, male, to argue against electing oneself. But I do work extremely hard to encourage participation by young people, by ethnic minorities who are involved in my campaign now within Wrexham, and different types of political activity to try to encourage different people to become involved in politics, because I think it's very, very important. I wouldn't be standing for election if I didn't think I had the power to deliver on the promises. I know Ed Miliband personally very well. I supported him right from the start of his leadership campaign. I think that he will make a first-class Prime Minister. I have great confidence in him. I think he is coming across much more powerfully in this election campaign now that he's got the opportunity to present himself. And I have many of the ideas, I share many of the ideas that he's expressed in his campaign. And I supported him because of his ideas and because he wants a more equal United Kingdom, a more equal country, a fairer country. I believe in those values, and I think that he can bring that about, and I think that will benefit people in Wrexham enormously. And I think that I will have the opportunity as Wrexham's Member of Parliament to participate in a Labour government that shares the value of this community that we have in Wrexham, which I think is fundamentally a supporting community, a community that looks after vulnerable people, but is imaginative, is vibrant, and has a lot to offer. And I think that that community can flourish in the atmosphere of a Labour government, which is what I want this election to achieve. I think Wrexham is a tremendous place to be, to live, to bring up a family, to run a business. But I think that at the moment, Wrexham is struggling. A big reason for that is because of the Conservative Liberal Democrat coalition government that we have. We know that Wrexham wages have fallen substantially since 2010. In the last year alone, they have fallen by 7.4%. That hits people in Wrexham really hard. It means that more of them are working on zero-hour contracts, more of them are working on reduced-hour contracts, and more of them have less money in their pockets to spend in local shops and to support our local economy. What that means is that as a town we're struggling and we need change. And we need change by addressing those fundamental economic problems. The Tories will tell you that things are getting better. In Wrexham they're not. They're not getting better because the Tories don't understand that just because the economy is booming in the southeast of England, the rest of the country is not booming. We are struggling. And the Tories will never understand that because they have no conception of what's important in Wrexham. Any decent government would not have introduced the bedroom tax, which has affected some of the most vulnerable people within our community. And any decent government will repeal that, which is exactly what the Labour government will do. Any decent government will give chances to its young people. Labour in Wales has protected students within Wales who pay tuition fees at a third the level of students in England because there is a Welsh Labour government. We've retained the educational maintenance allowance because there is a Welsh Labour government. But we need to take real action to bring a recovery in Wrexham. What that means is that we need a government that understands the town, the economy, and the values of the people of Wrexham. I think that means Wrexham needs a Labour government.